Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm Kris. I am Kris. This video is sponsored by Yasir Muhammad. This is Signs of the End Times Part 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So, before we get
I have to be very
No, I wasn't your time yet. I know it was my fault I hit the button. We don't talk about those things. You can hit that like button. The old thumbs up a rooski. That's what they call it. If you like the content, click on the subscriber rooski. And then if you want to keep the channel rolling, sponsor a video, say thanks, you click on the thanks a rooskies. Those are scientific terms. I'm going to open my Lipton Diet Green Tea Pineapple Mango flavor. Not sponsored. Oh, it's delicious. Important news, blah, 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 whatever that was, and video time.
precise what I say. Another very interesting tangent, which is relevant to us, and it is in my notes. One of the most famous claims of Jews.
All right, had to fix the glitch. I missed the space bar and I hit M. M as in mute. Missed the space bar, hit the M button.
Famous claims of Jewish messianic fame was a person born and raised and died in Muslim lands, spoke Arabic fluently. And he was a member of the Ottoman peoples, meaning a citizen, if you like, even though the concept of citizenship is modern. And this is the famous rabbi known as...
This is Ted Judaism. I remember him from before. I'm pretty sure I'm accurate on that.
Shabtai Tzvi.
I was completely wrong. Must have been a dream I had.
Shabtai Tzvi. Shabtai Tzvi was born in Ottoman lands in the 16th, 17th century, 16 something. He died in, don't quote me, 17th century. And Shabtai Tzvi was a famous rabbi who began to have a larger and larger following and eventually claimed to be the Messiah. And his followers increased, and he began demanding more and more things. A lot of problems happened. He's a very interesting figure. He intermingled with European kings and with the Sultan Mehmed IV, the famous Ottoman Sultan, until finally his demands became so ludicrous and political, and making a long story short, but he began to be political. And when he began to be political, the Sultan imprisoned him. And eventually his followers clamored and whatnot, so the Sultan decided to execute Shabtai Tzvi. And he called him to his palace, and he said, "Your penalty is death, but I shall forgive you if you convert to Islam." Now, I'm not arguing that was good or bad, I'm just telling you what happened. Whether that was good or not, it's not my business. That's what the Sultan Mehmed IV decided. If you convert to Islam, you are forgiven. Faced between these, Shabtai Tzvi decided to convert to Islam, which caused a great crisis amongst his followers.
He told him he was the Messiah, correct? And then he converts. Yeah, I would completely understand why that would be a problem.
Because if he's the Messiah, what are you going to do now, right? It caused a huge crisis. He had thousands of followers.
And he might say it, but how many of those followers instantly thought, well, he lied to us? Or how many of them thought, oh, well, he was forced into doing this because... I'm going to say more people thought he was forced into it. Yeah.
And they all thought that he's going to be the Messiah, bring the kingdom of David back, this and that. And lo and behold, he embraces the Shahada in public. He takes off the turban of the Yahud and he wears a big Ottoman turban. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. In those days, your clothing would tell you apart. He had the clothing of a rabbi. And in the presence of the sultan, he took off his rabbi cloak and he wore the Ottoman, I'm not joking, it's not a joke, he wore the Ottoman turban and he said the Shahada and he said he's a Muslim. What are his followers going to do? Massive chaos, confusion.
Did any of them convert?
Some of them, I think the majority, ended up either saying this is a ruse or a tactic, or converting with him. A small group left him. So this turned out to be one of the most bizarre conversions in Islamic history, because what
I'm looking at the group that left him as the smart ones, only because maybe they saw, wow, we feel foolish, like we can't believe this, and they left. Whatever they did on their journey after that, on them. But the ones that converted with him, I don't think they converted for the right reasons. They did it because they wanted to believe in this guy still. That's why I think the smart ones left, because this guy lied to you. Doesn't matter if he converted for the right reasons, for the wrong reasons, to save his life or not. Like, I'm not talking about, I'm just saying, face to face, man to man, he lied. So I would not want to follow him, even if I do view the religion as correct. Him converting to that, it still stings that I would have been lied to.
What happened was, his followers, in fact he himself, became half Jew, half Muslim. He observed Ramadan, but he observed the Sabbath as well. He read some Quran, but he also read the Hebrew. So he had this new thing that came about. And his followers were called Donme, which was a derogatory term.
So he was either a Jewslim or a Muslim.
By the Ottomans, by the Muslims of the time. Donme, there is no English equivalent. There's no English equivalent. It means convert, but not with a positive connotation, like a traitor convert. Like, there is no English word. A convert, but not like a positive convert. You've turned your back and left, and you've come, but we're not, like a big question mark, that type. This is the term that who gave them? The Muslims of the time. They weren't happy with this guy and his followers. Too weird. Eventually, the Sultan, of course, and by the way, initially was very happy, gave him a massive check here, massive money, you became a Muslim, good. Eventually it turned out he's still observing Jewish rituals and customs, so he lost all favor. He was exiled. He died in exile. His followers, who are now outwardly Muslim, inwardly continued to be what are called crypto Jews. Okay? And their numbers increased, and they are still around in Turkey, the Donme. They're still around in Turkey. Now, to make the plot worse, to make the soup thick here, there's a lot of conspiracy theories. We Muslims love conspiracy theories. And the problem with conspiracy theories is they're so ludicrous, except for the ones that are true. This is the problem. And you can't really tell the true from the falsehood until Allahu A'lam. So, conspiracy theories are a problem. Nonetheless, I'm narrating the conspiracies, I'm not endorsing them, please, okay? So when Fox News comes and misquotes me those 10 seconds, please go back to this clip that I'm saying here right now, that I'm simply narrating so that you should be aware. I am not endorsing the conspiracy theories at all. The conspiracy theories that were started from that time frame And they lasted up until today, they are there. The religious Muslims of the Ottoman lands said these people are zanadiqa. What are zanadiqa? Crypto-Muslims who want to destroy Islam. They're not real.
I cannot believe he's saying that about those people. They're trying to destroy Islam from the inside. Wow. What a conspiracy theorist. Just kidding.
They want to harm Islam. And they hate Islam, but they pretend to be Muslim. And the Donme became rich and powerful in a number of cities, in particular the one city where Shabtai Tzvi died. And at the turn of the century, 100 years ago, and inshallah, in this year, I hope to give you a very academic lecture about the history of 1919, because that is one of the main turning points of our history, 1916 and 1919. In 2016, I gave a talk in my Memphis masjid, 1916 in the shaping of the Muslim world. Now it is 2019, and I want to give a part 2 to that. Inshallah, make dua, Allah gives me time and whatnot. It's just a matter of time and preparing the lecture and slides, but it's 1919, you need to know this date. Around this time, 1919, around this time, a little bit before and after, but around this time, a group called the Young Turks were formed. And the Young Turks were a very, very secular, anti-religious groups of Turks who were keen on abolishing the Khilafah and bringing about a Turkey that was secular in nature. Now, what I'm about to tell you is true. Many of the leaders of this movement were from in particular a very, very dashing yet cruel, intellectual yet heartless man later called Mustafa Kemal, later called Ataturk. Ataturk is from the Donme, this is a fact. Now you go figure what is conspiracy and what is history. You go figure what is true and what is false. I'm simply telling you the perception about the motives of the Donme. And then I will tell you factually, Ataturk hated Islam. Ataturk mocked Islam. He was not a believer in Islam at all. And it's very clear that he considered Islam to be something that caused his people and nations to be backward. And if he wanted to, if he was able to, he would ban the religion. He did enough damage to the religion as it is. As you know, he shut down the madrasas, he abolished the khilafah, he abolished the Grand Mufti, role of the Grand Mufti, he made the court system secular, got rid of all of the sharia, he made the Quran to be recited in Turkish during the salah. The adhan was recited in Turkish, not in Arabic anymore. Instead of Allahu Akbar, they said something in Turkish. That was his whole point, to make everything Turk. So, Ataturk is from the Donme. You understand where conspiracy theories come from. And not just him, but many of those who followed him. Do you understand how this is relevant to Dajjal? It's not coming out of there. Shabtai Tzvi claimed to be Messiah. And all of this then leads there. Anyway, so we have 5-6 minutes left, so I needed to mention one final thing. Okay? Now, I have saved one issue to the very end because it is highly, highly, highly sensitive. And that is a hadith that mentioned that towards the end of times, when the big Armageddon battle takes place, and there shall be Dajjal on one side and Isa on the other, that is the final Armageddon, the big one, that Isa will kill Dajjal. And then all of the followers of Dajjal will disperse running for their lives. Many of them will be from that group. And they will try to save themselves by hiding. And the hadith mentions, this hadith is in Sahih Muslim, and there are versions of it in Bukhari, but it's Sahih Muslim primarily. The hadith mentions that at that time frame, the creation will side with the Muslims publicly. I shouldn't even just say Muslims, the supporters of Isa. because there will be Christians who will support Isa and believe in him, so they will become Muslim, right? And for all we know, there might be Yahud as well who will choose at that time to be with the truth. The hadith don't mention that all of them will follow. It just says the majority of his followers will be from there. There's a difference between the two. So, the hadith mentions that every tree and every rock will say to the believer, come, there is that person behind. Come, and he is hiding. So that there is no use to hide. There's no use to hide anymore, because the creation of Allah will publicly humiliate and say, oh, he's hiding here. Come and deal with this person. Except for the tree of Gharqad, that is a tree that will be quiet and not side with the Muslims. Now, every once in a while, some innocent khatib somewhere in the Western world gives a khutbah and he quotes this hadith. And memory jumps on him. You know what memory is. If you don't, then alhamdulillah for you. Or Fox News jumps on him. Or Pamela Geller jumps on him and takes this small clip and goes viral with it. And says, oh, this is an anti-Semite and he is calling for the destruction and he is Hitler version 2.73 and he is this and that. Bring him back again, right? So it becomes problematic to quote our own tradition because accusations of anti-Semitism come. And a few years ago, there was a University of California would host the MSA, uploaded all of the books of hadith. Once upon a time, if you ever did a Google about hadith, the first one would be the University of California. One of the MSA brothers, he uploaded all of the hadith collections, and it was a great resource. Obviously, these guys found it, and they found these ahadith in Sahih Muslim. And they said the university is anti-Semite, or it is hosting anti-Semites. It's hosting Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, right? So the university, it was a big scandal. The university had to get involved. The MSA had to edit and censor Sahih Muslim. Sahih Muslim had to cut a hadith if they wanted to host, and eventually the whole thing was pulled. There is no longer the hadith collection on their website. It's gone. It's gone. So this raises a very difficult topic. Are these ahadith anti-Semitic? The response, I think, is very clear, and that is that first and foremost, as a matter of principle, these are traditions that are found in books authored 1,000 years ago, 1,200 years ago, books of hadith. Censorship doesn't make any sense. Are you, O people who are criticizing a book in the past, going to censor your own books and not teach them when they have misogyny, when they have race issues, when they have issues that might be politically incorrect? There is hardly a classical book, except that there are phrases or notions. Even Shakespeare has anti-Semitism. Read The Merchant of Venice. It is a purely anti-Semitic tract. Are you going to ban The Merchant of Venice? Are you going to stop it and strip it from being sold? Are you going to take it and make it non-available? The hypocrisy is ludicrous.
I was watching a video today. The channel is Mr. Beat. He does history videos, so I'm interested. And he did a video. It was George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. I watched one, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and James Madison. But anyways, I watched them all together. But on one of the people, might have been Washington, they were talking about him being a slave owner. He's terrible. And he goes, you may not like him morally or whatever because of the slaves. You may not like him, but it doesn't mean that he's not there to be studied. Your thoughts and opinions and your moral compass, irrelevant. This period of time, this human being, this religion, you don't get to pick and choose what you're going to study because it's history. It's there. And these are key people in key moments in key parts of history. So whether you like it or not, You have to research it. You have to study it. Find fault in it if you want. But not doing it invalidates you, not that person that you might despise. So you have to, you can't just decide, oh, I don't like this person. Oh, I don't like this period. You get mad at Washington because he was a slave owner. A lot of countries were slave owners in the 1700s. A lot of people were slave owners around the world. You want to criticize one person, criticize the whole time. But understand that that was more the norm than you would expect. You can't just paint over the entire area, the entire history and that period and say, nope, not worth studying. No, it is. Not studying it means there's a chance that it could come around again. Not as it was, but there's, just disregarding it and pretend like it didn't happen. That doesn't make it go away. You're not making history better. History we should study to understand what works, what doesn't, pros and cons of things. Like there's a reason why we enjoy that. You can't just cast it aside. Like that's a childish thing.
You don't go back and sanitize history just because you don't like it. Even if you don't like it, it needs to be taught and explained and clarified. That is a matter of principle. That is what liberalism stands on. And when it comes to every faith other than Islam, they uphold it. When it comes to Islam, we see the double standards. That's the first point. Second point, the accusations of anti-Semitism need to be addressed head on. They need to be addressed head on. And we need to stop being so defensive. Let us be frank and honest here. Study history, O Muslims. Be educated. Anti-Semitism is a European phenomenon. It's not a Muslim phenomenon. It never existed in Muslim lands up until 1947. Anti-Semitism is something that began in Europe by Christians, and it was prevalent throughout their history, and it is still around to this day. Muslims were never anti-Semitic. Yes, it is true.
I saw a little clip today. There's a channel, I think her name is The Muslim Mum. I didn't watch the whole video. I just saw a little clip. It's Tucker Carlson. So if you're an American, you know that that's a right-wing, some might say nut job. There are things that he says that I'm like, okay. Other things where I'm like, thought you were getting better, dude, but you're back on this course. But he talks about the cities in the West are like falling apart. And then he says, you can go to a city, I think he said the Gulf. So it was like Saudi Arabia. Well, I don't, in that region, he was like the Gulf region, whatever. And I don't remember if he named a country. But he said he went there, and he's a very loud and proud Christian. He got talking to somebody. He said, yeah, I'm a Christian and, follower of Jesus Christ. And he said the person looked at him and goes, oh, that's great. It's fantastic. What a great person. And he goes, I was blown away. And the other guy goes, oh, well, you think they were just, like playing games with you? And he goes, no, they have a deep love and respect for Jesus. I didn't know that. That was Tucker Carlson saying that. And this guy was like, oh, and he was just blown away. And Tucker went into some other things, just that he goes, we look at them and we think, oh, they're walking around with, come on, Jackson, stop. They're walking around in the hijabs, yeah. And they're under Sharia law. He goes, and we're thinking that's oppressive and it's mean. He goes, meanwhile, they're all smiles. Everyone's happy. They're not committing crimes. He goes, it's a much different thing. He goes, you don't have to worry about being robbed. He goes, in some of the places, a little different, but he goes, other places, you don't have to worry about being robbed. And the other guy was like, no, and he was just like, yeah, He goes, it's a much different way of life there. And I thought that was very interesting because it was Tucker Carlson, of all people. I did not expect him to really say anything nice about anything outside of Christianity.
Sharia has Ahl Kitab and Muslim. But Ahl Kitab includes who? Christians and Jews. And there's a slightly different Sharia. It's not anti-Semitism. Historically speaking, Muslims and Jews historically had much more in common. And they would always bind together against the one who would persecute them, and that is the Afranj, the Rum, the Franks, the Christians. Historically, Muslims and Jews had a much stronger relationship than Muslims and Christians and Jews and Christians. Historically speaking, without exaggeration, the greatest minds of the Jewish tradition, pre-modernity, all of them are found in Muslim lands. All of them. Starting from Baghdad and ancient Iran and Andalus and Egypt, you have the greatest minds coming, including Shabtai Tzvi in Ottoman lands. They could not do what they did in Muslim lands. They could not do it in Europe. Every time the Christians persecuted the Jews, Muslims opened their doors. The last time, 1492, when the Muslims were expelled from Granada, the Sultan of the Ottoman land said, "You Europeans are fools. The Jews are intelligent people. They're useful. Why don't you come?" And he invited all of them en masse to come and live in Muslim lands. And that is why throughout the Muslim world, throughout the world, the largest population of Jews before 1947 were in Muslim lands. In Yemen, in Iraq, in Morocco, in Egypt. These were where the Jews were. So this whole notion of Muslims being anti-Semite, by the very people who defended, by the very people who invented anti-Semitism, please Muslims, educate yourselves. Don't fall for all of this stuff, okay? Also, so that's historically speaking. Also, now let's get head on. Okay, so we talked about historically. Thirdly, let's get to the issue. Okay, well the ahadith do mention killing. Let's be honest here. The ahadith do mention them. Jayyid, they do mention them. Let us realize these ahadith, they are predictions, not prescriptions. Big difference. They're predictions, not prescriptions. They're telling you what's going to happen. They're not telling you it is allowed to do it. So, if you believe in these predictions, you believe that stones are going to talk. I believe they're going to talk, but the people who criticize us don't. If you don't believe 90% of it, then why are you believing the 10%? These are predictions of the end.
That's one thing that I'll never understand, why some people could say, nah. Well, obviously that's true. Nah. Yeah, I'll believe that. It's like, it's no different to me than picking and choosing the stories that you believe. Like, oh no, I believe this one, but Moses, I don't think he parted the Red Sea. 40 years to get out of the desert. It's probably like 3 months tops. It's like, well, why do you follow it? Because I believe in Jesus. Okay. But what about the other stuff? It's just filler. Right.
End of times of Armageddon, and what's going to happen? The apocalypse, the end of the world. If you believe that trees are going to talk, if you believe there's something called the Antichrist, if you believe there's something called the coming of Christ, well then, if you really believe that, fight on the side of truth, not on the side of evil. End of story. If you don't believe it, these hadith are not telling Muslims to do anything. It's describing what's going to happen towards the end of times. And therefore, if you choose the side of good and not the side of evil, you're not going to have this issue. So the bottom line, we don't have to worry about this charge of anti-Semitism. We need to educate ourselves and challenge it head on. These are not anti-Semitic hadith whatsoever. It's merely describing a battle towards the end of times, the forces of good, the forces of evil. Those who choose the forces of evil will have to suffer the consequences. Simple as that. You don't believe in this battle, then don't quote 10 phrases or 10 words and ignore the 100-word hadith. Don't quote that one phrase about the tree is going to say and ignore the whole context. That's being hypocritical. No scholar derives sharia from this. And again, to be brutally honest and blunt here, when the Holocaust was taking place in multiple places in the world, Muslims stood up to defend. Muslims stood up to help those that were being persecuted. This is a fact. The Muslims of France, the Muslims of Morocco, multiple places, they helped the Jewish people. And I have visited those places, Auschwitz and Dachau and others. And I will tell you honestly, and this is a reality that Allah knows, if I were alive at that time frame, I would have thought it is something that Allah will reward me if I were to protect these believers from that evil that was taking, believers in Allah overall, from that evil that is taking place. What happened afterwards, 1948 onwards, is not related to what happened before. If you were alive in 1940, you saw what is happening to this persecuted race, men, women and children being killed indiscriminately, it would be a part of our iman to protect the innocent from this evil force of Nazi Hitlerism. And that's something that I firmly believe, whether you agree or not, is besides the point. The point being, we need to challenge this notion of anti-Semitism. It is not anti-Semitic. These ahadith are predicting the future, not prescribing law right now. Law tells us we protect minorities. That's what law tells us. Even in an ideal Islamic state, history proves that we protected those minorities. History proves that they flourished, the Yahud flourished under the lands of Islam like they did not flourish until the advent of modernity in Europe. They were not allowed to do what they were in Muslim lands. So we deny this accusation of anti-Semitism from its complete, as we said, number one, the issue of hypocrisy and double standards. Number two, historically speaking, where did anti-Semitism come from? Number three, the Muslims and the Jews and the relationship. Number four, these ahadith are descriptions of the future, predictions, and not what? Prescriptions, not prescribing what is to be done. So there is no anti-Semitism whatsoever, and we Muslims cannot be anti-Semites because our Prophet ﷺ was a Semite, Ibrahim was a Semite, the majority of Semites are Muslims. How can Muslims be anti-Semites? Yes, we can be anti-Zionists, and we are anti-Zionists, but we are not people who hate Jews and Christians. No. There's a difference between Judaism and Zionism. Muslims, be careful. Never criticize Judaism en masse unless it's theology. We can criticize aspects of theology. Jews, there are good and bad people amongst them. Christians, good and bad. Zionism as a movement, you have Christian Zionists, as we explained. You have Jewish Zionists. You have atheist Zionists. And we criticize Zionists, but not people of other faith traditions. They're Ahl Kitab. With that, time is up. Inshallah ta'ala, we'll continue next Wednesday about the nuzul of Isa and the issues of Isa, and then move on to the other major signs. Wa akhir da'wan alhamdulillah bil alameen. Wassalamu alaykum.
Okay. Well, that was good. I hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned from my lecture that I just gave. So, that was good. I'm going to go ahead and end it there. I don't really have anything to add because I pretty much said it all as you heard. Wow. It just blows my mind the people who will listen to some aspects of a religion, but not the whole thing. Like, that's just... And I know I'd probably be one of those people. There would just be some things where I'd be like, yeah, no, I just can't. Anyways, I'm going to end this here. I'm going to go eat some food. So, hope you enjoyed. And until next time, have a good day, have a good night.